Just when I couldn't think I'd be more impressed with a young man like Bear Bachmeier, he goes and does something that makes me think that he is poised for success and stardom at BYU.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast, and as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about Bear Bachmeier. Yes, it was a press conference. He spoke to the media yesterday, but I got to say, I think that everything he had to say indicates this kid knows exactly who he is, and he is ready to take the reins of the BYU offense. We'll delve into that. Then we're going to talk about the depth chart, the first depth chart of the season for BYU, some of the notable things on it that you'll want to be aware of going into the Portland State game. And then we'll finish up today's show with some more recruiting news. Now, obviously, I mentioned it yesterday on the podcast. Going to catch up with Juni Moala. Some of you know him as Little Petty Moala from Orem High School, an exclusive conversation with him. And then one of the breakout stars of Ryder Lyon's otherworldly performance on Saturday night was one of his wide receivers, Rob Larson. Well, he gets an offer from BYU, and we'll get into why BYU is so intrigued with this young man. It's all ahead on today's show. All right, right out of the chute on today's podcast, many of you probably have heard the audio or seen the video of it, but Bear Bachmeier addressed the media for the first time since being named BYU starting quarterback. I said in the open of today's show, he does things, or at least he did something that made me think that this kid is absolutely poised for major success with the BYU Cougars. And you're probably thinking, okay, what did he do in a press conference, Jake, that impressed you so much? Well, what impressed me is I have been covering press conferences for BYU for a decade and a half. I have been through a lot of them, some very good ones, some very bad ones, and quite literally everything in between, it feels like. The thing that always stands out to me is when young players, and in the case of Bear Bachmeier, he's 19 years old. He's never started a Division I college football game, let alone at the Power 4 level. He gets that opportunity this weekend against Portland State. And he gets up there in front of the cameras, and while he was short and to the point and had his ums and ahs and his stutters and how he addressed things, I think if you read between the lines, and we're going to play what I like to call, we call it in radio a supercut. I think it's the same thing in video. You'll hear the audio or video depending on if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to it wherever you get your podcast. But the thing is, you're going to hear him address a number of different topics when it comes to him taking over as BYU starting quarterback, his feelings about it, but also how he felt in terms of taking over the job, his confidence level in himself, and more importantly, why I think he believes in his own mind he is poised for success. So without further ado, this is courtesy of BYU football and BYU athletics. Here's a supercut of what Bear Bachmeier had to say in a Q&A with media yesterday.
What was your reaction to being named QB1?
Yeah, it was thrilling. It was a great moment. It's an incredible honor to represent such a profound university, and obviously being on the football team, it's an incredible honor.
What was your confidence level when you got to BYU in late May, when you finally arrived, that you could earn this job as early as you did?
Yeah, you always want to be confident in yourself and your ability. I think with the support cast, Coach Mitchell and Coach A-Rod, and even the quarterbacks in the room, elevating everybody's game. But yeah, I would say that my confidence level was pretty high.
Bear, what expectations has Aaron Roderick now set for you since being named the starting quarterback?
Yeah, I mean the expectation is to win a championship. I think the individual expectation is we want to complete the ball. We want to put the ball in our playmakers' hands, and we want to go score touchdowns. But the end goal is to win a championship.
And then wanted to ask you, A-Rod noted that last Tuesday told you the guys in the morning that you were going to be the starter, but when the team was told that you were going to be the guy, can you describe that moment and maybe what was the reaction from the team and how they've kind of supported you since?
Yeah, the support has been second to none. When the quote unquote leaders of the team are happy and just gravitating towards you, and it's special. and we got a great team, and I think we're going to go really far.
Every time we talked to A-Rod about you, he brought up how impressed he was at the way you learned the playbook. He said you learned the entire playbook since you got here, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you've been on campus since like June or July or something like that. Just how did you kind of dive into the playbook and pick it up as quickly as you did? Were there a lot of late night cram sessions, or what was behind that?
It was a big test. It's a big testament to Coach Mitchell and Coach A-Rod. I met with Coach Mitchell, almost every day. Install 1, install 2, install 3, and so forth. So I think me learning the playbook, I give a lot of credit to Coach Mitchell, because he taught me the whole playbook in a month, 2 months, and then I had extra hours to kind of memorize and regurgitate the information. But I test the learning process to Coach Mitchell. He helped out immensely.
Bear, as I understand it, you've worked with John Beck extensively throughout your high school career. There was a picture of you with him in Provo not that long ago. What has he done to help you further your game throughout your high school career, and obviously now on your time at BYU, etc.?
Yeah, he's done a great deal. He's such a great resource to utilize. I started training with him when I was in 7th grade, and I don't want to nerd out, but we get into the weeds of biomechanics and trying to refine my kinematic sequence, and actually just called him last week about his process going into game days and what it is from Sunday to Friday night, and so he's just been a great resource and very grateful for him.
I'm telling you, guys that young are not that polished and don't exude that much confidence. And maybe I'm reading into it way too much, but the more I learn about Bear Bachmeier, the more I read about him, the more I see of him and everything else, I am more and more impressed with this young man's poise, his mentality, and I'm hoping that everything that we're seeing in terms of what he does in front of the media, what he's done in practice so far, I hope it translates over when they take the field Saturday night at LaVell Edwards Stadium in front of 60,000+ fans. I am fully expecting that place to be a madhouse, even with it being Portland State, being BYU season opener. Yes, it's an FCS game that could easily turn some people off, but it is the season opener. And I think the Cougar fans are jonesing so hard for just football that they'll be there in the stands cheering on this BYU team. They should be entertained by this BYU offense led by Bear Bachmeier. Yes, I understand that he is a young player. And yes, we talked about it yesterday. If you're an everydayer on this podcast, and I encourage you guys to do just that, be with us literally every single day. We talked about the fact that the first 2 games of the season, based on last weekend's results for both Portland State and Stanford, could be a little bit of fool's gold for BYU, but they should be 2-0 out of the chute going into their first bye week in week 3 ahead of a road trip to East Carolina. Does that mean that BYU is not good? No, that doesn't mean that. But the simple fact is, you look at it, this is the perfect opportunity for Bear Bachmeier to come in, ingratiate himself even more than he already has to BYU football fans, and hopefully absolutely demolish 2 opponents that BYU is on paper far better than, and roll to the first 2 victories of the year and kick off this season in grand fashion. And I think the same time with 2 victories under their belt, and I'm taking them 2 at a time. I know some of you said, hey, Jake, don't look beyond Portland State. I'm looking beyond Portland State. No offense to the Vikings, but they are awful. The Tarleton State did what they did to Portland State. Yeah, I know we had Jay Hill say that the most improvement comes from week 1 to week 2. Okay, if improvement comes, are they going to score 7 points? Speaking of Portland State, we'll see what happens. And that may be me being a little too haughty about BYU's chances, but I think the Cougars are going to absolutely steamroll Portland State. And Bear Bachmeier, I hope he comes out looking like a hero. The other thing I want you guys to hear is a little bit from Chase Roberts. Chase also addressed the media during their weekly press conference yesterday. And I'll just put it this way, Chase says Bear is his own man and marches to the beat of his own drum, but in a good way.
Everyone has different personalities and ways they go about their life, right? And Bear is a guy that is very mature and someone that you don't think of as a freshman quarterback, right? He's got the body of a linebacker, and he can hang in D1 football. That's not anything you're worried about. He doesn't need that, growing when it comes to like the physical aspect. So, and then his mentality that he's had all camp, he doesn't act like a freshman quarterback. So when you go out and you make plays and you lead the team, doesn't matter if you're, a freshman or you've been in college football for 6 years. The people rally behind you and they trust you. And I think once you go out and you prove that, which he has during camp, and I think which he will during these first couple games, then we just get rolling. And doesn't matter, I guess, the age or the experience, but that you go out and you play well, and that's what he's going to do. So we're excited for him.
Chase, I got to follow up on something that you said about Bear. I think you said he's built like a linebacker. He's got the body of a linebacker. He's a big dude, 6'2", all that. He also has the jersey number of a linebacker.
That's true.
You don't see very many quarterbacks wearing number 47. Was that weird to get used to at first, or are you guys kind of leaning into one wearing 47?
No, it's awesome. I love it. It just shows his personality and who he is, and it fits him perfectly. Like, he just doesn't care about what other people think of him or fitting the mold, or he's just going to be him and do what he does. So I think it's a perfect number for Bear, and represents, the type of guy he is.
Thank you once again to BYU Athletics and BYU Football for that video. It's a big courtesy of them to allow me to use that here on the podcast. But I got to say, I'm super impressed with this young man, speaking of Bear Bachmeier, and I think that he is absolutely ready to rock and roll and lead BYU to some hopefully high-level success this season, and very much looking forward to seeing how the Cougars perform on Saturday night. All right, also on Saturday night, you're probably going to see some changes to the lineup. We got our first depth chart of the season. No Kyle Whittingham playing games with the media and not releasing a depth chart. Kalani Sitake held to his word, and they released that depth chart. There are some notable omissions and also some notable changes you'll want to be aware of going into Saturday night, and making sure you guys are the smartest Cougar fans at LaVell Edwards Stadium when you get to the stadium. And we'll get into exactly what those are next, right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Today is the day, everybody. FanDuel's Futures Day is here. And if you want to essentially put your money where your mouth is, today is the day to do that with our friends over at the NFL. Whether you want to pick your division winners, your Super Bowl champion, your MVP, no matter what you're into, go to the FanDuel app today and get started with our friends over at FanDuel, as it is a one-day and one-day only event. The best part is they've got long shot division winner options for you guys. I mentioned Super Bowl champs. You can crown that even before week one begins, and it's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning those future bets and get them in, because today is the day, the only day with the FanDuel Futures Day. It's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, where you can play your game. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, everybody, this is your time to sound off on what we're doing with the Locked On podcast. And we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners, to make your favorite podcast, like this one, even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising as well, because a number of you who get upset about me doing ads like FanDuel. But nonetheless, you can have your you can sound off by going to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everybody who completes the survey, we entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts with an s.com/survey. You also can find the link in the show notes below. Thanks for helping us out. All right, let's talk BYU depth chart. Oh, that's exciting stuff. No, I actually think this depth chart that BYU released for week one is actually very, very insightful. I'm going to share my screen here. For those of you watching this on YouTube, you're going to see this pop up momentarily. But the biggest thing I think to take away from this is that Kyle Whittingham likes to play games with the media and wants to essentially control the narrative at all times. And I understand why he wants to do that. But I think the bigger point is if you look at this, I'm going to make this a full screen so you guys can see it hopefully a little bit better. But if you look at the depth chart for BYU, we've got an interesting ore at quarterback starting off. McKay Hillstead and Trayson Borgay are the co-backups here at the quarterback position. And Kalani Sitake, when asked about it yesterday, said essentially they just want to have more competition pushing guys like McKay and Trayson to be the best versions they can be, and at the same time push Bear Bachmeier as a starter. Other notes I took away from this one is if you look at the tight end position, it's very clearly it's Carson Ryan as the number 2 guy. And then you have a 3-way battle at backup. You have Kean Need, Ethan Erickson, and Noah Moiaki. Now, I think every one of those guys brings something to the table at tight end, but they don't bring the whole package that Carson Ryan brings. I fully expect Carson Ryan to be an absolute star in this offense for BYU, and be aware of that. Another thing to pay attention to, and Aaron Roderick addressed this during his coordinator's corner stint on BYU TV yesterday, saying that Waylon Lapuoho is likely not to play this week. Now, Waylon has been sidelined a long chunk of training camp. Any of you who are locked on Cougars Insider Group, a shameless plug to join us, I have been noting it day after day that he has been on the sidelines more often than he's been in drills. And what we heard early on in camp, he was getting some veteran days. They trusted him to be ready to go. If he is dealing with any sort of injury, and it sounds like it very well may be that's the indication, you don't need him against Portland State. In fact, you don't need him against Stanford. I would rest him if you need to for the first 4 weeks of the season, including your 3 non-conference games, and in hopes that you have him ready for your Big 12 opener on September 27th against Colorado. That is what really matters here. And I think the guys like Sonny Mocassini, who are listed as co-starters for alongside him at left guard, are more than capable of holding down the fort there. And I fully anticipate that they will get the job done. Flipping over to the defense, a couple of notes there I wanted to point out to you guys if you're paying attention to this, is that the defensive line very much still a work in progress. A lot of these position battles unresolved. Vili Amipuha and Bodhi Schoonover are listed as co-starters at defensive end. On the other side, the opposite end position, Logan Latui is listed as the starter, but then you have a 3-way battle behind him. Orion Maile Kafusi, Hunter Clegg, and Tausili Akana are listed as the co-backups at that position. I would expect of those 6 names, every one of them you'll see extensive reps for now against Portland State and going forward this season. Eventually, I think there will be a pecking order that is established with guys essentially separating themselves, but do not be surprised to see all those guys get opportunities. I was curious to see Justin Kirkland on the list because we heard from Jay Hill yesterday during Coordinator's Corner that he's not going to be available for at least the early part of this season. And the other name in terms of injuries to pay attention to, if you scroll down just a little bit, if you look at the nickel position, Tommy Prasis, who has been a safety for BYU, now listed as a starter at nickel. Jonathan Cabello was figured to be the guy at that position. Well, Jay Hill said he's injured and he will not be available for the first part of the season. So that gives Tommy Prasis the opportunity to be that starting nickel back with Tavion Beasley serving as his backup as a transfer in from San Diego State. I like the makeup of this unit. I actually really like the fact that Cialia Serra and Che Bryant Struther have got co-starters among them at Mac backer or middle linebacker. I think that those two have been neck and neck all camp long. And we talked with Che on this podcast, and he talked about what he is absolutely focused and honed his craft to be able to do this season because he wants to make the most of it. He's a redshirt senior. This is his final shot to get it right. And there's a lot of people who've been excited about Cialia Serra, but get just as excited about Che Bryant Struther. The fact that both of them are listed as co-starters at middle linebacker is not an indication that the coaching staff is not confident in either one of them. In fact, I think they're ultra confident in both of them, and they're going to put both of them on the field as often as possible to have success, at least in theory and on paper this season. So overall, I really like the way that this depth chart shakes out. There are some injury concerns that obviously will be things that we'll be monitoring in coming days and weeks. But the bigger point to be made here is I look at it from the vantage point that BYU knows who they are. They know what they want to accomplish. And more importantly than that, if I can throw this up here as well, is that BYU now has their captains in place as well. And they're the names you kind of all expect looking at it. Guys like Tanner Wall, but maybe Tanner Wall is a little bit of a surprise to some of you, but I think anybody's been paying attention to Tanner Wall doing what he has done for the BYU football program over the past few seasons shouldn't be surprised by him emerging as one of the captains here for BYU. Other captains, Jack Kelly, surprised there a little bit, but at the same time, I'm not that surprised. Chase Roberts, that was inevitable. Chase is one of the senior leaders, maybe the heart and soul of this BYU football program. And then also Keanu Tanavasa, he has been a leader since the second he stepped foot on campus. And LJ Martin, really cool to see him stepping up. He's figuring to have a breakout year this year. And then in terms of co-captains, there's a lot of these guys listed here. At co-captains, you have Logan Latui, Raider DeMooney, Isaiah Glasker, Maury Bamba, John Talmoya Payao, Talon Alfrey. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you have Waylon Lapuoho, Bruce Mitchell, Andrew Gentry, Carson Ryan, Bear Bachmeier. I think that's valid for him as the starting quarterback to at least have that A, the co-captain patch. The C is the captains. The A is the co-captains, for those of you who will be inevitably asking me later this season. And then Will Farron, leading the special teams unit as a co-captain as well. I think every one of those guys will be on, they will be. They'll be on the leadership council. And I think every one of them is very deserving of that honor, because the more important side of this, as you look at it from the BYU coaching staff side of things, is they want the players to police themselves. Now, that doesn't mean the coaches are going to be completely hands-off. Kalani Sitake learned a hard lesson, I think, early on during his tenure, early on in his run at BYU, that he thought that BYU's players essentially would police themselves. A lot of them returned missionaries that handled their own business. And then he learned, you know what? I have to still have the structure in place to allow the players to thrive in that circumstance. As long as they have that, the opportunity will always exist for them to be the leaders that I hope they will be. But the more important part is, at the same time, as a coach, you've got to set the example, you got to set the tone, and make sure that everybody is on the same page and understands exactly, very straightforward, what the expectations are, what the rules, in the case of BYU with the honor code and the like, are in play, and more importantly, to have the players essentially handle their business themselves and make sure everybody stays on the same page and have the player leadership do the work for you. That sounds like a convoluted mess. I can understand that, but at the same time, BYU's best teams have had very, very strong player leadership. When it's the coaching staff having to essentially pull everybody, that's when it gets a little bit off the rails. But when the players, they take that initiative, you look no further than last year with guys like Connor Pay and Tyler Batty. They were the vocal leaders. They were the guys who rallied the troops, but also weren't afraid to get after people when needed. Well, this year's group, they've got to be capable of doing that. And if they can do that, it indicates BYU should be set up for success going into the season, and hopefully at least repeating some modicum of what they did a year ago. All right, we'll finish up today's show. Coming up next, an exclusive conversation with Lopeti, a.k.a. Juni Moala, star defensive lineman for Orem High School, originally coming down from Davis High School. He's committed to the BYU football program. Why does he like playing for BYU so much, and what does he hope to accomplish in a BYU uniform? We'll get to that next. We'll also let you guys get a little more acquainted with a guy who was a breakout star Saturday night. If you were watching Rider Lions and the Folsom Bulldogs play on Saturday night, became well acquainted with Rob Larson, and his performance netted him a BYU offer, and we'll try and examine exactly what sold BYU on him outside of his heroics on Saturday night. Next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Rougiette. Now, you've probably heard about all the different ED drugs out there, like things like Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. It's the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. The best part is, unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue in less than 15 minutes, and the effects kick in fast. The best part is, if traditional options have not worked for you, Rougiette might be the answer for you guys. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. The best part is, it's completely online. Rougiette connects you with a board-certified doctor. They ship your treatments to you discreetly right to your door. You don't have to worry about having a parade down your sidewalk. The best part is, you can head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege right now. Use the promo code LockedOnCollege and get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege, and use the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, another plug for you guys to join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU sports that I am hearing coming right to your phone in the form of a text message. The best part about it is just $5 a month to be a part of the group, and the kicker, a 14-day free trial. We can get you through the first 2 weeks of the season, essentially, from right now. If you join the Locked On Cougars podcast insider, Locked On Cougars Insider Group, 14 days free before you charge a single penny. Join us today. Link is in the show notes below, and hope that many more of you will be joining the Insiders Group in short order. All right, before we go on today's show, let's let you guys get to know a guy in Lopeti, Juni Moala. Now, I had a great opportunity to catch up with him last Friday night after Orem High School suffered a tough defeat at Lone Peak. And as you might imagine, not necessarily the best feeling losing a game of that magnitude, but I got to give Lopeti, or a.k.a. Juni, a lot of credit. He grinned and bore it, and the best part is it did not let him affect our interview, and really, you're going to see him. He was surrounded by his teammates right at the outset of this interview. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to hear a lot of chatter around him. It's because like 10 or 11 of his teammates surrounded him. They took a group picture. I'm probably on some highlight reel somewhere for Orem High School with my better side, my rear end being in that picture. But the nice part is Juni had a lot of good things to say about what he hopes to accomplish both at Orem High School in his senior season, but more importantly, what he wants to do as a BYU Cougar right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.
Juni, in terms of your play overall, you made a transition from Davis down to Orem. What's it been like so far?
It's been great.
Because obviously these guys have all got you,
Love these dudes, man. The defense, the offense, everybody's cool.
Yeah.
Community's great. Everybody supports us, so it's been great. It's been an easy move for sure.
Now, tough loss tonight against a very strong Lone Peak squad. What do you take away from this?
We're going to have to sharpen some things up for sure. I think we went into this game thinking, we got a lot of talent, but it's going to take a little bit more than that to win a state championship, to win region, to go out and win those tough games. So this next week definitely going to be good for us, and we're going to definitely take what we did wrong here and go fix it.
What have you worked on the most playing defensive end?
I think for me it's trying to stay home, trying to stay disciplined, just because I know I'm not going to make every play, just use the flying around, but I got to be able to stay home and make those plays that when they come to me, I'm there.
Do your job, right?
Yes, sir.
It can be tough at times, I understand that, but in terms of the feedback you get from BYU coaches when you talk to them, what do they say?
I think, the biggest thing from them is the same thing. Just stay disciplined. Don't get too antsy to try and go make every play. Yeah. And then on top of that, just keep playing physical. Don't try and finesse everything. Just stay physical, and you'll be good.
Is the main coach you're talking to Sione Pua, or is it Kelly Papinga? Okay. What's the relationship with him like?
Great. I think he's actually my uncle on my mom's side. So
I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay, so you have the family connection.
Yeah, so it's been really cool. Definitely getting to know him. My mom knew his wife growing up, and so it's really cool to be able to get to know him, be able to talk to him, and things like that.
So another family connection to BYU and everything. What's the overall, when you committed to BYU since then, what's it been like?
It's been great. Definitely been easier on me for this senior season, just to be able to focus on Orem rather than focusing on, where am I going to go? Just being able to focus here and be able to look forward to it for sure. And going against Bach today and be able to play alongside Kawe as well, it's been great.
Do you talk to guys like Bot all the time? Like, did you communicate ahead of a game like this?
I try to talk to him. Throughout the game, we was talking, patting each other on the back. Yeah. But I'm definitely looking forward to playing alongside him rather than against him.
Now, how excited you have a guy like Kawe come back eventually?
Oh, we're looking forward to it. I mean, our offense is great as it is. Our defense is great as it is. But when he comes, he picks it up to another level, and so it's definitely good for us.
Now, in terms of like Kalani Satake, I'm sure you have a relationship with him. What's it been like talking to him throughout this process, even after you committed and the like?
I think it's been good. It's kind of like, again, another family connection. So it's been good. Just being able to talk to him, open with him, and everything's been great. It's more of like a uncle connection again, rather than a coach or a player.
What sold you on BYU in the end?
For me, it was the feeling we kept getting every time we went over there. It was just that spirit was so strong over there. Coaches are great, and I mean, they may not have all the money in the world and all things like that, but it's a great program for me and also my family as well.
What do you make of their prospects this season, looking from afar?
We good. We looking good, man. I'm definitely looking forward to playing alongside some of the best dudes in the state. So it's definitely going to be fun when we get to that point.
What's your mindset as you go through the senior season? Is it just to focus on the here and now?
Yeah, I think for me, I've been looking forward to this senior season so much that I kind of, I missed out on a couple of things. There's a couple of things where I was like, man, I wish I would have enjoyed that a little bit more. So I'm definitely going to try and soak in every moment I got. Whether it's a win or a loss, I'm going to be able to enjoy that just playing alongside my brothers one more time.
There you have it, Lopeti Moala. A big thank you to him for taking the time, and I'm excited to see this young man play for the BYU Cougars. I love his size. I love his ability. He can slot inside or outside at the high school level. We'll see where he ultimately develops. You heard him talk about the fact he's being recruited by Sione Puha, who is BYU's defensive tackles coach. That probably gives you a little bit of an indication of where he's probably going to play at the next level. But I'm telling you, his technical ability, he went head-to-head with Bachmira Talo, who we talked with yesterday on the podcast. They had some pretty darn good battles out there on the gridiron. The nice part about Juni, you can hear that he has got a lot of conviction about his game, but also a lot of conviction about what BYU means to him and why he ultimately picked the BYU Cougars for his college destination. So once again, a big thank you to Juni for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. All right. Final note before we go on today's show is if you did not see this Saturday night, you missed out on an absolutely electric performance. Now, talking about Ryder Lyons, and we talked about him yesterday on the podcast, but if you missed Rob Larson's performance, well, those of you watching on YouTube are going to get a treat right now because I'm going to play his little highlight reel from what he showed against the Grant Union, what are they, the Pacers, in Folsom's win, which was an absolute demolition. But the thing about Rob Larson in this game, he was a breakout star. Now, he's got a number of offers. He's a 3-star athlete, a high 3-star athlete, 87 rating from 24/7 Sports, the composite rating right in the same realm across the different recruiting services. But if you watch this highlight reel, look at his route running. Look at his toughness, but more importantly, look at his ability to absolutely just abuse opposing defensive backs. He made life absolutely miserable for these kids at Grant Union. And those of you thinking that Grant Union might be a scrub, no, this Grant Union squad from Sacramento won a state title last year in California. Crazy, crazy scenes. And I know Ryder Lyons had 400 yards, 5 total touchdowns, but Rob Larson, he was absolutely electric in his own right. And BYU rewarded him with an offer yesterday. He is a member of the 2027 recruiting class. So in theory, if he were to pick the BYU Cougars, he'd actually be coming to BYU at the same time Ryder Lyons would be enrolling, because Ryder plans on going on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, then enrolling for BYU in time for the 2027 season. So this combo of watching it on YouTube, and you can go find it, look at his huddle highlights, watch him play. He is a guy that I think is absolutely electric when he has the ball in his hands, but more importantly than that, showed a lot of technical ability. As I said, the route running, the toughness, everything that a coach like Fesi Satake, who is a pretty darn good evaluator of talent, because Fesi is, brought in some pretty high-level wide receivers to BYU over the years and continues to do so. But the nice part is you like to see guys take advantage of being able to play on the biggest stages possible, and a guy like Rob Larson absolutely did that in spades on Saturday night and earned himself a pretty big commitment from BYU. So really, really cool to see that. And congratulations to Rob Larson on his big showing on national television. That is absolutely electric to see a guy like that, as I mentioned, take advantage of the stage being given to him on ESPN. And as much as they're mentioning Ryder Lyons, they're mentioning the name Rob Larson right alongside it. That is really cool to see, and we'll see where it takes a guy like Rob Larson if BYU ultimately is where he wants to end up, because as I mentioned, he's got a number of other offers. Looking at it, his offer sheet's got the likes of Arizona State, Cal, Colorado State, and Nevada, but BYU's right there in the mix, and I think a performance like that on national television, I'll just put it this way, BYU's not going to be the only program who took note of what he did for Folsom, and likely will be inquiring about his services in the near future. All right, that is going to do it for today's edition of the podcast. It feels so good to be in game week, everybody. Having an absolute blast. Hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Excited for Saturday night. We'll have full coverage for you guys in the lead up to that game. And as always, thank you for all of your support of the podcast. Do want to remind you guys to make sure you make your second listen the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings across college football. And the best part about it is you become the most informed fan of the rapid changes in the college football landscape. You can find the Portal Podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, just like this one. As always, thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, and come back tomorrow and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.